After 20 very long, very loud years of sermons on the dangers of terrorism, it seems the Republican Party has no choice but to negotiate with 20 political suicide bombers just to operate a government. I'm overdosing on poetic justice, just frothing at the mouth as I slip into Elysium. As I write, the American House of Representatives assembles for a third day of voting for Speaker. McCarthy has lost 6, 7, 8 consecutive rounds of Speaker confirmation votes, and seems likely to lose a 7th, 8th, 9th. This is the funniest thing to happen to a Speaker in literally 100 years, and the humiliation does not seem likely to end anytime soon. Here are the concessions McCarthy has made to the House Freedom Caucus so far. 1. If McCarthy wins, any single member of the House can initiate a motion to vacate. This forces a vote on whether to keep or remove the Speaker of the House, which means any member of the Freedom Caucus can force a repeat of this farce anytime they want. 2. A restoration of open rules on all major bills, which allows rank-and-file members to propose amendments without committee approval. This means Boebert and Gaetz can force the House to vote on whatever amendments they think would be fun on any given day. 3. The creation of a House Select Committee, think Church Committee, on weaponization of the federal government. This will essentially recreate the Twitter files on the floor of Congress, but with every media outlet to the left of Fox News forever. 4. The Congressional Leadership Fund can no longer spend money in GOP open primaries to advance one relatively sane candidate over another batshit one. Don't cry for McCarthy. The minority leader made his bones pretending to be the thing Freedom Caucus members actually are, a hardline government obstructionist soldier in the war against the demon liquor of government spending and the evil libs who push it. The would-be speaker is a sheep in wolf's clothing, and his fellow wolves, knowing this, are demanding that he howl. But he can't. He can only bleat, pathetically, and so the wolves laugh and circle and lick their bloody chops. Whether or not McCarthy eventually wears them down, the Freedom Wolves have already won. They've established dominance. These monsters ate the midterms, and they'll eat you next if you don't sit down, shut up, and do as you are told. It is insane that the Freedom Caucus is ascendant and not neutered. In the same way and for the same reason that it is insane that the GOP failed so spectacularly at the ballot box last year. Nothing makes any goddamn sense anymore because the rules are changing. Too often, people interpret that quote, "war is politics by other means," to mean that war and politics are the same genre of thing, which they aren't. War is not politics. Clausewitz says so directly in the quote. War is a different and incompatible tactic to achieve the same genre of ends. And, as McCarthy is discovering in real time, there's no room for a politician in a war zone. Let's back up. The GOP adopted a far-right strategy for the 2022 midterms, pick absolute lunatics and hammer home the culture wars. To say the strategy failed would be an understatement. And so, conservatives woke up on November 9th with Occam's razor pressed hard against their throats. The simplest, most coherent explanation for what happened at the ballot box is that MAGA is to blame. Back in October, Mitch McConnell saw the writing on the wall. Candidate quality has a lot to do with the outcome, the Senate Minority Leader said, in what to many ears sounds like an accurate and prescient take. Here's an alternate theory. It's the one I heard at TPUSA's America Fest over and over last month. It goes like this. Establishment Republican rhinos torpedoed perfectly good candidates by not believing in them hard enough. Quote, "I watched McConnell's statement live and I was sick to my stomach," Byron Donalds told the crowd at AmFest. Yes, that Byron Donalds, the ambitious, camera-ready Florida representative that the Freedom Wolves are promoting for Speaker, in exchange for that defection from McCarthy back in round 2. Also a man that, not to brag, I called out as a possible vice presidential pick back in August, when I still thought Trump would win the 24 primary. Donalds probably won't be Speaker, but he's certainly going to be something. Anyway, leaders never sit around and complain about who they have in the field, Donalds continued. They go win with what is on the field. An extended series of sports metaphors followed, which I did not understand and will not attempt to relay here, only that those metaphors included Bill Belichick as an example of a coach who encouraged his team to do their best, and I understand exactly enough about football to know why that's funny. The point is that the abysmal midterm performance is the establishment's fault. The establishment. Not the conservatives who triumphed in the primaries and face-planted in the general. The other guys. They didn't believe hard enough, with their hearts or their wallets. Here's Blake Masters, who ran for the Arizona Senate seat and lost.
Mark Kelly was unable to defend his voting record. He was unable to defend the Biden administration. We had him on the ropes. He was stammering, literally shaking at times. But there was a massive money asymmetry. He outspent me $70 million to $10 million hard dollars. I couldn't erase $70 million, not without establishment help. And the honest truth is, I was abandoned by the establishment.
The honest truth is a little more complicated than that. Masters' old boss, Peter Thiel, kicked in at least $17.5 million, and the Club for Growth PAC threw in $7 million more in the final days of Masters' campaign. Nonetheless, the gist of his story is correct. Masters received no help from the Senate Leadership Fund Super PAC, the McConnell-aligned Leviathan that spent far more money than any other group on advertising this election cycle. Kelly crushed Masters in the fundraising front, and the Democratic candidate used that advantage to carpet bomb the airwaves with political advertisements. Still, this neglect does not explain all or even most of the midterm losses, especially high-profile candidates that received millions of dollars, like Oz in Pennsylvania and Walker in Georgia. Seems like those losses might be due to something else, something we aren't willing to mention. Some ghostly presence that smells faintly of hamburgers and Aquanet. I've already done a podcast about Trump's conspicuous absence at America Fest and recently wrote an obituary for the large sad boy, but nothing I write could possibly say it better than Lauren Boebert herself, who, whilst voting for Donald's during round 5, said this.
So let's work together. Let's stop with the campaign smears and tactics to get people to turn against us, even having my favorite president call us and tell us we need to knock this off. I think it actually needs to be reversed. The president needs to tell Kevin McCarthy that, sir, you do not have the votes, and it's time to withdraw. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
The crowd made that exact ooh noise you would expect them to, and so did the media, and so did I. This is post-Trump MAGA. It is fractured but retains its vital essence. None of them will ever say that Trump's deranged candidate choice cost the GOP the midterm election. They will pay him lip service until the heat death of the universe. Nevertheless, he is their silent scapegoat. For the Freedom Caucus to survive, there needs to be the slightest bit of space between themselves and their great but tainted leader. What you're seeing on the House floor right now, not just a fight over the gavel. It's the first open battle of the Republican Civil War, and if you think this speaker fight is bad, just wait for the struggle over a chairmanship of the Republican National Committee. That battle will occur largely in backrooms and not on C-SPAN, but if AmFest is any indication, conservatives are coming for the big seat in a big way.
We're in the middle of a culture war in our country, fighting an enemy that is as powerful as it is relentless.
Harmeet Dillon told an enthusiastic AmFest crowd on the final day of the conference.
But what is the party doing to stop their advance? I'm not satisfied with that leadership, and that's why I stepped up to run for chair of the Republican National Committee.
Dillon's Wolf credentials, they're solid. She served as co-chair of Lawyers for Trump, that legal team Trump assembled in the days before the 2020 election to ensure election integrity. As the former president mounted an increasingly desperate campaign to hold on to power after his election loss, Dillon worked around the clock to make that happen for him and urged the Supreme Court to, quote, just step in and do something. No surprise that she's currently working for Kari Lake as Lake challenges the results of the Arizona gubernatorial election.
And what is the cost of a failed Republican leadership? 6 years ago, when the current leadership took office, we had the White House, the Senate, and the House. We had a strong Supreme Court. Today, we have a strong Supreme Court. We barely have the House. We have senators who can't block disastrous judicial nominations. And we have the worst president in my lifetime. Whether it's an unwillingness or an incapability to lead, the consequences are the same. The Republican Party of today has chosen to be spectators in the political arena, not active combatants. We are not taking the fight to the left. We are sitting back and letting them punch us and weakly responding. That's not acceptable.
In a sense, Dylan is right, though at first glance it does not seem that way. Kevin McCarthy, for example, has howled the rhetoric of war for damn near a decade. He howled it for the Tea Party, then hopped onto the Trump train and howled it there earlier than any other Republican congressman I can think of. McCarthy's sycophantic devotion to 45 earned him the nickname My Kevin. McCarthy went to the bat for Trump during the former president's first impeachment, faithfully pushed Trump's every agenda item, and supported every Trump candidate, no matter how unhinged. He fought to the death for Marjorie Taylor Greene through the whole Jewish space laser debacle, and when Democrats stripped her committees anyway, swore to do the same to Democrats in 2022 out of vengeance. After Trump lost in 2020, McCarthy declared on Laura Ingraham that the president had won. When Congress shakily reassembled on the evening of January 6th, McCarthy voted against certification in 2 states. Sure, he blamed the president for January 6th privately, but he voted against the second impeachment publicly and likely convinced many others to do the same. But McCarthy also passes funding bills. McCarthy passed the $1.7 trillion funding bill last month. McCarthy will always pass the $1.7 trillion funding bill because McCarthy is a politician. And the job of a politician, ultimately, is to govern by consensus. Of course you want that consensus to fall in your favor, and you'll wring every concession out of the opposition you possibly can. But the end result of politics will always, by definition, be a compromise the majority can live with. The GOP is no place for politicians anymore. The most telling moment of this entire GOP shit show so far came yesterday evening, when a reporter asked Byron Donalds whether he was concerned about political retaliation. I'm going to play this 3 times. Let's hear it.
Are you worried about retribution after the fact? There was threats that folks that weren't going to vote for McCarthy would be kicked off committees. Now you've put yourself in a pretty public position opposing the person that could be the speaker. Are you worried about retribution?
Man, I'm 6'2", 275. I'm not worried about that.
And again.
Are you worried about retribution after the fact? There was threats that folks that weren't going to vote for McCarthy would be kicked off committees. Now you've put yourself in a pretty public position opposing the person that could be the speaker. Are you worried about retribution?
Man, I'm 6'2", 275. I'm not worried about that.
And again.
Are you worried about retribution after the fact? There was threats that folks that weren't going to vote for McCarthy would be kicked off committees. Now you've put yourself in a pretty public position opposing the person that could be the speaker. Are you worried about retribution?
Man, I'm 6'2", 275. I'm not worried about that.
The reporter's question is extremely clear, and the atmosphere is calm and quiet. So Donalds heard the words just fine. There is no ambiguity for anyone who listened past the first 8 words. The reporter is asking very specifically about political retribution, committee assignments, intra-party sabotage. But Donalds heard a different question. He heard, "Are you afraid you're going to get your ass kicked?" And he answered accordingly, without a whiff of metaphor. Because that's where his head's at right now. I have heard Donalds speak 3 times at 2 events. The man is a polished and skillful rhetorician. He is both smart and clever, a rare combination in this or any other arena. Donalds knows how to talk issues and how to talk strategy and how to weave the personal into the political when he does it. He sounds more like a politician than most of his compatriots over in the Freedom Corner. I've had my eye on him for a while. And that clip we just heard, though, mask slips. Like Dylan, like Boebert, like all of them, he's ready to go to war. Not the metaphorical kind. The kind where you do not compromise with the enemy, but instead present a choice: surrender or perish. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it as long as I have to. If you believed, really truly believed, that the opposing political party was a satanic cult of pedophiles and puppet masters who are actively working to destroy America by renouncing everything that is good and castrating your children for sick sexual pleasure, would you consider, even for an instant, compromising with something that demonic? The Freedom Caucus has no interest in governing, no interest in politics or compromise. Not with McCarthy, not with the party, certainly not with the Democrats. They want to restore their twisted version of an imaginary America. They want to crush evil. They want war. This speaker battle is the future. It is very, very funny right now, and I strongly encourage everyone to laugh as long and as hard as they can, because it won't be funny forever. For many, many years, people like McCarthy have loudly beaten the drums of war while quietly doing politics. But the real warriors are here now. They bought Limbaugh's rhetoric. They took Newt Gingrich at his word. They grew up with O'Reilly and Hannity and Glenn Beck screaming into their ears, and they believed everything they heard. I should know. I grew up with those voices too. Lauren Boebert is 36. I'm 35. We both grew up in Colorado, both likely watched the same Fox News lineup in our respective living rooms each night. Hannity helped raise us both, and here we are today.
Politically, Congresswoman, you and I agree on most things.
Hannity told Lauren Boebert last night on his show, almost pleading. His hair, which I remember as brown, is gray. He looked exhausted.
We don't disagree on many things.
Yes, we do, Sean.
And I do have respect for you,
but I believe that history will show that I'm on the right side of this, Sean.
Well, you can believe in your position, but I'm using your words. You said to President Trump, you said, we're very clear, he doesn't have 218, so you need to ask him to withdraw. If by Friday, you and your group of 20 don't have a name with 30 votes, is it time for you to withdraw? And if not, why do you support a double standard? Last question.
It took Boebert a few iterations of the talking point she'd clearly drilled before the interview. McCarthy does not have 218 votes, which, Jesus, Lauren, we know. Before she finally answered, this patriarch of our shared generation.
I will not, Sean. I will not withdraw.
It's what you taught us, Sean. You too, Kevin. All you sheep. You raised us to be wolves. Don't be surprised that wolves are what you're getting.